Welcome, everyone, to the Ignatius Press Podcast. In today's very special edition, we're going to be discussing America in honor of
Good.
the United States of America's 250th anniversary. And here we're interviewing Ignatius Press's founder and editor-in-chief, Father Joseph Fessio.
And why is this a very special edition as opposed to just a special edition?
I think it's very special because of this momentous event in America's history. I don't know how momentous, really. I'm not that into anniversaries myself.
Okay.
But it gives us a great opportunity to talk about America, something that's on my mind a lot these days.
Okay.
America. And I want to start with the question, do you love America?
I love America. I do very much for what she's been, what she is, what she can be. And, of course, we all have to love our country. So if I were in Croatia, I'd love Croatia. By the way, this is our 250th anniversary. It's either biquincentennial or something else. I'm not sure what we're calling it, but I reflected on the fact that I have lived over 1/3 of the life of this country. That's a pretty good chunk, you know?
Man, what have you, where did it begin for you? When were you born?
Well, in 1941. Yeah, didn't know too much then, but it was January, so just before we entered World War II.
Wow. Was it right around the time of Pearl Harbor that you were born?
Well, I was born in January 41, and Pearl Harbor was December 41.
Oh, that's right.
I was 11 months old.
Wow.
More or less.
Do you remember anything from World War II?
I remember my dad was in the Navy, reserves, but he was in the Navy at the time. I remember waking up to John Philip Sousa, da, 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 da. In the radio in the morning, they'd play patriotic songs.
Wow.
And so that probably had an effect on my, brain formation and mental attitudes and so on. But remember that. I remember vaguely some movies or pictures, whatever, of flames and bombs, whatever, but it's very, very vague.
What is the America that you knew as a child growing up?
Looking back on it, I think it was, well, first of all, as Augustine says and many others, that we're all talking about when we get older, about the good old days, about everything seems better when you're looking back into your youth. I mean, part of that's because in a happier society where you've got stable families, and when you're growing up, it's you're protected. You don't know what's going on in the wider world, and everything's given to you, room, board, food, clothing, and so on, and schooling. And so it's a pretty idyllic time for most people, I think, look back in the youth. But I do think that growing up in the late 40s, early 50s was particularly unusual, both for civil society and the church, the Catholic Church. I mean, I didn't know the Depression, but my parents did. And so you always heard about how tough it was and how difficult it was, how I had to work and, had to make do. And so the people there appreciated the abundance we now had. And then World War II had just ended. And there was a sense in America that we won against a terrible enemy, World War II, the Germans. I realize now that the Russians did more than we did. They lost 27 million people, I think, and Stalingrad was a disaster, although they won. Nevertheless, it was after that had happened, and we came back victorious, and we fought for a good cause, we thought. I think it's true it was a good cause. And we were building up again. So it was a time of enthusiasm, a time where we'd gone through difficulties of the Depression and World War II. That was the kind of environment I had. I grew up in Menlo Park, which is about 30 miles south of San Francisco, in the peninsula here. The weather is glorious. It doesn't get too cold, doesn't get too hot. I remember my youth going to public grammar school, and then eventually Catholic Jesuit high school, 1954. But as I look back on those days, I don't recall anybody ever being driven to school. You walked, not uphill both ways, but I mean, you walked, rode your bicycle.
Because it was safe.
And then
do so.
after school, you went to the park and you played ball or, tag or whatever until it got dark and then you went home. I mean,
Yeah.
it was pretty idyllic, really. And in high school, which is 54 to 58, I mean, I didn't know about drugs. I knew about drinking, but it wasn't done very much. And what do? We go hunting, we go hiking, we go fishing, we go climbing, we go to the beach, ride our bikes to the beach, that kind of thing. So, and your house wasn't locked. You didn't have a key to your house. You come back, your door is open, you walk in. Uh, it was not, I wouldn't call it an integrated society. It was suburbia in Northern California. I knew a few blacks, not many, but we had, mainly it was Italians and the Irish. Those are the two big ethnic groups. And we'd have a baseball game every year, either Italians versus the world or Irish versus the world or Irish Italian. But, uh, stable family, a good school. My teachers, I look back on it now. I mean, once I became ordained, I realized looking back, I got some letters from my grammar school teachers, a couple of whom were very good Catholics, and they were happy to see that I became a priest. Uh, so I, I think, and that would, so the society seemed pretty stable. Conservative, liberal, we didn't know about that. At least young people didn't know about that. You might have different views of things. Eisenhower was president for part of that time, great hero from World War II. In the church, we had, like once a day every year, we all came together and took care of the parish. All the gardening and the hedge trimming and other kinds of stuff. And we had an altar society and this society and that society, and uh, lots of priests, lots of nuns. Everything seemed pretty healthy. In fact, the real question is what happened in the 60s, because that all collapsed.
Yeah.
But you asked about growing up, and I think it was uh, a wonderful time to grow up both in America and in the church. A lot of patriotism. I remember in Menlo Park, it was 1949. It was the centennial of America of California's founding, and not founding, but I mean becoming a state. Going down to the bazaar and the fair and everything, and everybody having all these rides and concessions and things. So it was a wonderful time.
How do you think that was different? Do you think that was different from the way that kids in other parts of the world were growing up?
Well, I remember very clearly in high school thinking to myself, I mean, my parents are Catholic. That's not a good reason to be Catholic, because other parents are Protestant or Jewish or Muslim or atheist or whatever. So I had to kind of think it through. I decided, no, I think that God exists and the Catholic Church is founded by Christ, who's God's son, and that's the right path to go. And I thought, gosh, I remember walking in, I think it was in the middle of the football field, saying, "See, I'm born in America, not in the outback of Australia, not in some African country where they don't have running water. Uh, I have a home. I've had an education. Uh, I live in a country where I'm free. Uh, what's going on elsewhere? I need to I want to be a missionary. I figured I want to give back something, because I didn't deserve that, you know. Uh, I didn't know much about the rest of the world, but looking back on it now, I would say that Europe was born from war, because where Russia was too, Japan was, and China had gone through the century of humiliation. So I didn't realize it at the time as much. What a privileged moment it was in our history and my history.
I want to go back a little bit. You were talking about, you opened this interview up. You said that you love your country. It's good to be patriotic. Why is it good to be patriotic?
Well, Chesterton talks about this in several places. Everlasting Man, for one, is that you try and count why you love your country. There's too many things. The air you breathe, the running water, the fact that there's roads there, there's just friends you've made. So this is all kinds of things. But, you know, I think everybody should be patriotic. Obviously, if you're under authoritarian regime, but even then, if you got a good family and you got friends, so I love my country like I love the church, although not as much as I love the church, but because pretty much everything I have came from my country, right?
Yeah. Do you think does patriotism, authentic patriotism, does it mean that you can't be
No,
highly critical?
you have to be
Very true.
critical, and again, they say you love your mother, but that doesn't mean your mother's perfect,
Mm.
or your father likewise. And uh, how, how how do you judge your country? Well, first of all, I'm an American. I'm happy to be an American. I've got half Italian heritage and 1/4 French, 1/4 German, so European. Um, but my love for Christ and the church obviously is more important to me than my love for my country. And I I would definitely want to die for my faith if called upon. Uh, for my country, I might have been willing to do that in years gone by. I'm a little more hesitant now, and especially hesitant about sending other people to die for my country, because I've learned a lot about the underbelly of our country, about the things that are not good in our country, about, and again, when I grew up, there was no abortion on demand. There was no gay rights, there was no homosexual marriage. There was no gender problems that I knew of. I'm sure there were some things going on in different places, but it was very small. But now that's kind of the headline stuff. So it's not the same country I grew up in, but it's still, I have to admit my great, debt of gratitude to the country.
I'm gonna go back historically to the founding of the United States of America.
Yeah.
You know, the American Revolution, the Declaration of Independence, the war, and the drafting of the Federalist Papers, and the drafting of the Constitution. Um, what set America? What sets the United States of America apart in its founding kind of principles?
Yes, we talk about American exceptionalism and so on. I think there's a sense in which we can accept that because uh, most countries we know of have been around for a long, long, long time. Even they've changed names and changed borders and so on. But yes, there were Indians here, Native Americans. But basically, we had people coming here who had a common religion, for the most part, a common view of society, a common language, and they were able to construct a constitution kind of on a tabula rasa, on a clean sheet. And obviously, they drew upon Locke and so on, but also through Locke and through those traditions, they drew upon the Middle Ages and the Judeo-Christian tradition.
And Rome.
Yeah, yeah. Rome, Athens, and uh, Jerusalem. Those are the three, you know, points that kind of are in our history, and of course, the whole Mediterranean. That's whole civilization there that we've benefited from. Uh, so that's unusual. It seems to me that you come and say, let's start over. Let's start from the beginning here and build it. So that does make us unusual. Also unusual, we're not really an ethnic country, uh, like many, if not most countries are. We're a multi-ethnic country, the melting pot idea and so on. So yes, we are unusual, but that's just like when you tell kids you're special. It's true. Every kid is special. Every person is unique. So I think we should rejoice over the fact that we've got certain characteristics which make us different from other countries. But I don't know if I were born in Malta or Croatia or Russia or China, I'd love my country too. You know, looking back and reading the Federalist Papers, for example, and the Anti-Federalist Papers, by
Mm,
the way, I look at the level of discourse
yeah.
in the late 1700s and early 1800s. I mean, really, or McGuffey's Reader, what kids used to learn when they were, in the early grades. I am very impressed by the level of literacy and education that early Americans had.
And civility.
Yes. Yeah.
One thing that strikes me about the U.S. is that it was founded by uh, Deists and and Puritans, of course. You know, people with puritanical backgrounds, kind of Protestants of different shades, coming from the British Isles, coming from the UK, kind of outcasts. kind of religious extremists in some way, or one way or another. You had the Episcopalians who broke off from the Church of England, but then you had the Puritans, and you had these not Catholics. General, I mean, there was
Yeah, there was some.
there was
Yeah,
some,
you're
but
right.
they were pretty anti-Catholic, but nevertheless they enshrined religious freedom into the law of the land, and checks and balances, which I think is one of the greatest
Yes.
sign of American innovation. But certainly we kind of revived it. But I think religious freedom in Catholic intellectual discourse today, there's criticism that of the American approach to religious freedom. There's kind of a desire to return to at least a Christian confessional state, whereas America is, we're under God, but we're decidedly not explicitly Christian in a sense. We share a God. Do you think that religious freedom is one of the most important elements of American life?
I do, but I also think there's no perfect society on earth in this time we have. Heavenly Jerusalem is perfect, but nothing before that is perfect, and there's always going to be pendulum swings, It's like freedom of speech. All of a sudden you got people saying things
Yeah.
which harm other people and so on. So yes, I think freedom of religion is important, and I think the Enlightenment, which is basically one of the roots also. I mean, we talked about Greece, Rome, and Jerusalem, but they passed through the Enlightenment, especially both the French and English Enlightenment, and I think that contributed positive factors. It also, both because of Protestant individualism and Enlightenment individualism, is a flaw. For example, our Constitution says nothing about the family. I mean, the most important cell of society, it's not our Constitution at all.
Mm.
It's the individual and the state,
Yeah.
And how you protect everybody's freedom against everybody else, all well and good. But, what about the family?
Yeah.
Mr. Jacobi, who's got a nice one starting now.
That's an excellent point. I think. What do you? Well, let's take that thread. What do you think are some of our national vices that we've developed over the course of this last 250 years?
National vices. I think this individualism has led to a sense of personal autonomy, which mitigates the game. We also have a tremendous tradition, as Tocqueville showed, of voluntary associations. So between the individual and the government, you have the family, the church, the parish, the organization, and so on. And the kind of voluntary philanthropy we have, all those things are good. But I don't think you can ever point to any single factor, except maybe Satan, for society dissolution. But to me, I know people say the church, we're only concerned about sex. The problem is, without sex, you don't have the family, right? And so when you start to have, you're proving contraception, and then abortion, and then homosexuality and same-sex unions, what are you doing? You're destroying the family. And I don't remember the statistics on this, but I recall that the majority of people in jail don't have a father. I mean, a father that they had when they were growing up.
Yeah.
So I would say, that the dissolution of the family for many, many different reasons is a fundamental problem in our society today. And thank God for good Christians, and especially the Catholic Church, which is the church is probably the last standing bulwark that defends the family at every point. Divorce, contraception, abortion, gender. Who stands affirming common sense, and God's plan? The Catholic Church.
Well,
why am I always yelling when I talk to you? Why can't I just say something calmly? I don't know.
The Irish and the Italians of Menlo Park.
I guess that's it.
The national vice of radical individualism is kind of famous. Do you think Do you think society? You talk about how society, American society, has transformed dramatically since you were growing up in the 50s, 40s, and 50s. Started in, it really began to manifest itself in the 60s.
Yes.
That's what I hear anyway. And do you think that this individualism that's kind of enshrined in our Constitution, at least, or founding documents, do you think that that contributed to the a lot of the problems that arose in the 60s with kind of sexual liberation and the rejection of God and the rejection of the family?
Yes, I mean, everybody's his own pope. They have their own morality, you know? As you talk, I was thinking about this just yesterday coming back from Whitewater, our retreat house of Ignatius Press. We left off Emma in her neighborhood down toward the avenues there where you were, 44th, 42nd Avenue, and so on. And you're driving in there, it's very expensive homes. And then you'll have a dark purple house, and then you'll have
Yeah.
a dark red house.
Yes.
And when you travel through European villages, you don't see that. You have the homes, they all got red tile roofs, they've all got their stone and are those people not as creative as we are? Or is there a sense that we're part of a tradition, we're not trying to stand out, we're trying to be part of something bigger than we are? I think that's one of the values that we are losing here with the positive value of creativity and individual initiative and that sort of stuff.
I have one of my closest friends is Polish, and he didn't grow up under communism, but his dad did, and he's very close to his dad. And he's told me his dad loves American rock and blues music because to him that was the music of freedom. He growing up under communism, that was the sound of freedom. That was the
Okay.
sound of individual freedom versus being absorbed in the communal blob.
Yeah.
Another Polish friend of mine tells me it was the sovereign individual. It was the sovereign individual that was a very important idea for them. And so, do you think that this individualism, there's also something, it could be a virtue, kind of a national virtue, this emphasis on individual dignity?
Well, yeah, look at the inventiveness we have and look at the sense of rights that we have, that people should be protected and everybody has rights. By the way, I meant to mention earlier about problems we have. Tribalism is one,
Mm.
that, I mean, I'm proud of being Italian American or partly German, French American, but the point is, those are in the background. I don't think that should be a major factor in my relationship with people. Whereas now we're getting more and more towards, what color your skin,
Mm.
that's not good.
Mm.
But now I forget your question. About individualism, the good things it has. Yeah. Uh, I think the inventiveness of America, all the patents we have, all
Yeah.
the technological progress we've made, uh, those are good. But on the other hand, that also has a, uh, negative effect. I mean, everybody has to have a startup, right? And you're going to try and beat the next guy and be disruptive, And so, well, okay, why can't we just relax a little bit, We'd have to go faster and bigger all the time. So there are natural corrections, and then most importantly, there are supernatural corrections. That's why the Pope's encyclical on artificial intelligence came out right on target, I thought. And he embedded it in the modern Catholic social teaching, starting with 1891 with Leo the 13th. I thought, yes, let's breathe some fresh air here and take a step back. And what about the human person? What about the people left behind? What about the common good? So I, I I think without Christianity, especially with the Catholic Church, we'd be in real trouble. And on that score, I mean, I think one of the great things happening in this country, Christians and Catholics, is homeschooling, new schools, small schools, larger families. So hopefully, I'm hoping that we'll kind of outbreed them, Thomas.
Well, where do you see America in 100 years?
Well, 100 years. 250 is not very long for, real like Persia or Russia, or China, something like that. Uh, but I'm not a prophet. I'm not sure we'll be here. If we're here in 100 years, God owes an apology to Sodom and Gomorrah, it seems to me. But
Where do you hope America will be in 100 years?
Huh. I would hope that we would return to the virtues that we've had from the beginning, the strong foundation on the Constitution, which I think was a good Constitution, strong family, strong faith, the freedoms you've talked about, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of the press, those would be more protected. Yeah, I would hope that would be the case. And we here at Ignatius Press, doing our part, we're trying to be leaven to society by bringing into our society the principles and the inspirational examples that the church has given us, the saints.
The news and public discourse has been rather, I don't know, what's the word? I would say kind of violent, violent recently. I mean, if you all you have to do is open up Twitter, and it's just an explosion of vitriol on every
I've
side.
never done that, but I believe that's the
Yeah,
case.
it's a.
No, I would say that stay off of Twitter if you want to be saying, but go ahead. Some of you have to, I suppose.
Yeah, what advice do you have for people who are following the news, maybe obsessively, and maybe entering into what they call kind of a doom loop, kind of a cycle of just reading bad news and worrying about U.S. foreign policy, worrying about where we're going as a nation. Should we try to get involved in politics? Should we think about politics more, or what steps should we take?
Not even Solomon in all his glory was clothed like the lilies of the field. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all things else will be given unto you. That's the advice that I didn't make it up. It's been there for a long time. But I think we have to have some time to remove ourselves from the noise and the hustle and bustle and everything, and reflect. And that's why it is dangerous to have social media and television, radio, internet, and so on, and you in your smartphone with you at all times, checking things. You got to back away. You got to pray, because ultimately God is the answer, and it's in His hands. And we have to step back and realize, as Ignatius told us in his exercises, that man is created to praise, reverence, and serve God, and by so doing to save his soul. That's it. That's the fundamental principle, the principal foundation. And as long as you do, I don't care what the future brings, because as long as you have the connection with God through the church, with the tradition of the saints, you'll have an anchor, a firm anchor. By the way, it's an interesting image in Letter of the Hebrews that the anchor, Christ the anchor, is in heaven. Now, usually you think about an anchor, you throw overboard, it's down below, right, in the ground. But no, our anchor is thrown up.
Yeah.
We grab onto that. It's in heaven. And so why worry about death? Why worry about suffer? I don't want to suffer, but as Jesus said, sufficient for the day is the evil thereof. Oh, another thing about that, because we have so many sources of information, we are, I believe, moving into even more a economy of reputation. You have to look at different sources of information and news, and then find those where there are people that are actual people and not AI,
Yeah.
and that you can trust. And then form friendships with those, not to close off the rest of the world, but we need support from those who accept these fundamental principles that we do as Christians.
Could you recommend any spiritual reading for people on the 4th of July?
On the 4th of July, well, I recommend you read the second appendix of Democracy in America by de Tocqueville, only because of this, that one of the great founding preachers was Cotton Mather.
Yeah.
And there's a footnote there in de Tocqueville where Mather says, very beautiful language, which I can't reproduce, that, we came across the seas to found the city on the hill, and we owe to those who come after us to give them the reasons for why we did this, And he lists them. Reason number one, to set up a sure bulwark against the Jesuits. That's what he says. His very first reason for the whole pilgrims coming over was to get rid of these papists and prevent them from having any kind of influence in the new society. What would I recommend? I don't know. What would you recommend? Well, what do you think we should be reading?
Well, we publish, I don't know if it's spiritual reading, but America on Trial.
I was going to say, yeah, by Robert Riley. That would be good. That would be a very good book. Because the question there is the moral decline that we're experiencing in our time a result of a flaw or flaws in our Constitution, or is the Constitution itself good, but we've not followed it properly? That's the big debate. And you can take either side as a reasonable person or as a Catholic, but what Riley does is show how our Constitution really is truly rooted in the tradition of Rome, Athens, and Jerusalem. Yeah.
If we want to pray for our country, the United States of America, what patron saint do you think we should pray?
Well, of course, Our Lady Guadalupe is the Lady of the Americas, so you want to pray to her. I don't know who else would pray to. Our Lady is pretty good. Yeah, I think we can take her.
How about Blessed Fulton Sheen? Soon to be Blessed Fulton
Yeah,
Sheen.
Blessed Fulton Sheen, you pray to him. He was a very exemplary American Catholic. I like Cabrini, Mother Cabrini, because she's Italian, but she did a lot for the country.
We already got a lot with Guadalupe.
Junipero Serra for the West Coast would be good. And yeah.
Amen.
Amen.
Well, thank you all for joining us on the Ignatius Press podcast. Please remember on the 4th of July to pray to Our Lady Guadalupe and Saint Junipero Serra for the next 100 years of the United States of America. Thank you.
Amen.